action. So take your hands, either one finger or two fingers, and you're going to find that area on your nose, the kind of bony part of your nose, right where your sinuses are. Okay, and just gently rub there just a little bit. Just a little pressure, trying to wake up your sinuses a little bit. Absolutely no wrong way to do this. You're just trying to feel what you can feel. And then let your hands travel up above your eyebrows and track those sinuses up there as well. Using whatever pressure feels good, whatever speed, if you want to linger on any spots. Then you can let those hands come around the sides of your eye sockets and incorporate that as well. Get some pressure on your cheekbones. And all of these bony parts of your face are where muscles attach to. So if you have any sore muscles in your face or in your neck, very often you'll find some kind of spicy spots here. Okay, and then shift your hands to behind your ears. There's a little ridge of bone that kind of right behind your ears, and you're going to just rub right there, up and down. Again, using the pressure that feels right, but trying to build just a little bit of heat. Okay, and then let your hands travel onto your scalp, and you can scrape with your fingertips a little bit, or you can pin down your scalp skin and just get a little bit of tacking and pulling. Again, you have lots of muscles that attach all through here, so just go by feel, find what feels good this morning. Okay, and then move down to your neck and just feel out what's going on in your neck, the back of your neck, near the vertebrae, the sides of your neck, maybe the tippy top of your neck where you connect to your skull, and then down more where you connect to your collarbones, the front of your neck. Try to feel for the directionality of the tissue. So your tissue always grows in a certain direction, and you can feel that with your fingers. Okay, and then move down to your arms and your shoulders, and just imagine like you're kind of washing your arms. So you're just trying to get all the parts of your arm. Just give it a little tactile touch, just enough that that area starts to feed back more nerve energy to your brain. And then move over to the other arm, just washing. Good. Okay, and then move on to your torso, your ribs, under your armpits, maybe behind your back as much as you can reach. Again, feeling for directionality of tissue, feeling for pressure areas that feel good. Feeling your stomach, your hip bones, the sides of your torso. Good, and then start heading down one leg, and same washing idea. Feeling the tissue, the direction of the tissue, really trying to get to every little inch of that leg, using pressure if that feels better, or some friction, some twisting, trying to get the skin to move. The skin is actually some connective tissue in your body. Okay, and then shift to the other leg if you haven't worked there yet. Good. If you can, make it down to your feet. If that feels good, give your feet a little moment. And then taking your time, make your way back up your body until you're all the way up to standing, catching any spots that need one more check-in. Okay, and then standing tall, take two fists and reach them towards the floor and really actively reach them. Okay, so it's like you're trying to reach your knuckles to the ground, but you just can't quite reach. You're actively reaching the whole time. This has the effect of pulling your shoulder blades down away from your ears and engaging some muscle tissue under your armpits. So see if you can hold those shoulder blades down, so actively holding. And then we're going to go through a little neck motion. Start by pulling your chin into your neck. and then pulling that chin more into your neck to start tilting your face down. And then finally pulling your chin all the way to your chest. Good. And just hold there for a moment, using your active effort to increase the stretch on the back of your neck. And then smoothly start to turn to look over your right shoulder, tracing along that collarbone and twisting your neck as much as you can. And then start to tip the top of your head back, reaching your chin up and around in a nice rainbow shape over to the left shoulder, but actively reaching for the floor the whole time. As that chin makes its way over, start tracing your left collarbone to get back to flexion. And then just hold there in flexion. Make sure your shoulder blades haven't moved on you. You're still actively reaching. Increase that stretch at the back of your neck a little more. And start moving to the left now. Turning to look over that left shoulder and getting the stretch that results. Then as you tip that head back, hunt for the stretch on the front side of the neck now. Go slow and really luxuriate in those sensations. Smoothly making your way over to the right. And then connecting your chin back to your collarbone. And finally back to your chest. Good. All right. And then let the effort go in your upper body. Let your head come back up to neutral. Very nice. And let's now come down to the mat into quadruped on hands and knees. Okay, and this is a good moment to work from your elbows if you prefer that, or you could rest your arms or elbows on a couch surface. That works fine. All of those substitutes for quadruped. All right. And then for this quadruped, we're going to do cat-cow, but we're going to just start from the neck, from the head instead of from the tailbone. So just engage a little bit of body tension by making those hands a little heavier into the ground, those feet a little heavier into the ground. And then keeping that effort going, start tucking your chin again, just like you were in your neck car, pulling your chin into your neck. That's how you flex the very top of your neck. And then chin to chest. And then moving vertebrae by vertebrae down your spine, start to stretch your upper ribs. And then the more middle part of your rib cage starts to round over. And then the bottom of the rib cage. And then finally stretching behind the belly button and even near the tailbone. And just hold that for a moment. Take a big inhale into the lowest parts of your spine. And then exhale and contract yourself into this flexion shape a little bit more. Now hold this active work and let's start at your head again. Start reaching your chin away from your neck. And now we're starting to move the neck into extension, segment by segment, moving your collarbones forward, extending your upper back, starting to reach your mid back towards the floor, and then your belly button towards the floor. And then finally your tailbone reaches up, and just hold here in extension. Take a big breath, try to stretch into any other parts of your torso you can. As you exhale, more actively extension. Okay, 30 more seconds to move at your pace, starting at your chin each rep. Really fully tuning into what stretch sensations you can find and what contraction sensations you can find. Keep breathing, but also keeping that tension for the last 10 seconds. Go ahead, finish up the movement wherever you are. Finish up that length of your spine and then shake it out and come down into a seated position. Okay, really nice work. I love that pace, everyone. Okay, so from this seated position, you're going to have your knees bent. We're going to also keep working on the spine. And we're going to be working particularly on that flexion ability of the spine. So I'm going to have Hannah just show one rep to give you guys an idea of how you can modify this movement for your body. So you'll all start with your knees bent. And if you're going to use the strap, you're going to strap the object, whatever you have, around your feet, and then just hold on to the ends. And the idea here is that strap gives you only enough help to make sure this exercise can be smooth and segmental, but you want to really try to use your torso tissue on the front of your torso as much as you can. So again, I'm just going to have Hannah do one, and then you'll jump in with us. You'll start at your tailbone, curling your tailbone under as much as you can, and then curling the neck segment as much as you can, and continuing up your spine, trying to lay your spine down. And you can try to get all the way to the floor, because we're not going to try to crunch back up. Yeah, you're just going to smoothly lay your spine down. And then once you're all the way laid down, you can just use your arms to help you come back up. You don't have to feel like you're doing a big crunch. Yeah, you can just, however you want to come back up. We're going to be doing these, the reps the way down. Okay, so go ahead and come up to seated, grab that strap to start. Okay. And one other option I'll mention, if you're starting to move down and your neck is barking at you, no need to go all the way down to the floor, because that's where your neck will get most taxed. So fine to just go part way. All right, so from this seated position, take a big breath in and then brace your midsection. So you're really turning your abs on actively. And then start to curl your tailbone under. Feel that bottom segment of your spine start to articulate. And then the next segment and the next segment, really rounding the back of your spine to place your spine down on the ground, and then all the way to the floor if that works. Okay, then everyone come back up to seated for a moment. Now, if you're using a stretchy band like Hannah's using, it works really nice. It stretches with you to go all the way to the floor. But if you're using like a towel or a belt, it won't go all the way to the floor. So that's going to limit how far you go, and that's fine. You're just going to go part way down. Okay, let's go ahead and do another 2 reps together. Brace your body. I want to challenge you to try to move with my voice if you can. Curl that tailbone under. Keep flexing the segment that you just curled and start flexing the next segment. So you're really asking each segment of your lower back to open on the back and shorten on the front. Keep going as far as your band will let you, or as far as feels good today. And then relax and make your way back up for one more rep. Yep. Good. And each time resetting, re-clarifying what you're trying to ask your body to do. Okay, take a big breath in to prepare. And then brace your midsection and use that brace to feel your pelvis tilt under. And then your lower segments of your spine flex. And then the middle segments of your spine. And finally, the upper segment smoothly laying down if you so choose. Excellent. Okay, now just stay laying on the ground, because we're going to actually turn over to work from prone here. So turn over onto your stomach, and you can place your elbows on the ground. So you're just in what we call like a sphinx position. And just relax here for a moment, take some deep breaths. Now, if you are someone who has some instability or some injury history in the lowest segments of your back, I want you to tune in extra here, because there's some modifications for you. But what we're working on here is very similar to what you were just doing, but now for extension. So you can feel that your back right now is already a little bit extended. And then gently, if you start to straighten your arms, so straighten your elbows, your spine will be pulled into more extension. And this is going to be very different from person to person, how much feels safe. Okay, so just take a look at what Hannah's going to do here. We're going to do a very similar drill. She's going to take herself up into as much extension as feels safe. Okay, And then without lifting her arms, she's going to try to make her arms feel light so that the muscles on the back of the spine start to contract. And then very slowly from the bottom of the spine up, she's going to relax her way down to the floor. So she's coming all the way down and laying her front of the torso all the way down on the ground, all the way to flat. So you don't have to rest your face on the ground, but we're trying to get that spine all the way to the floor before pressing back up into extension. Okay, so go ahead and everyone now join me and straighten your arms just as much as feels safe on your back. So you're extending your spine. And then from that extended position, start asking your hands to get lighter, and you should feel the muscles in your spine start to turn on. And then use those muscles to control your way down. Your hands can help, but really try to feel the work in those muscles along your spinal column, segment by segment, laying your spine down flat. Good work. Perfect pace until your face is looking right at the ground. And then you can press your arms and come back up into extension. Okay. From that fully extended place, take a moment and pause to feel your hands consciously get lighter on the ground without changing your body shape. And then feeling that contraction in your spine, start to lay your spinal column back down. Very nice. You might feel work in very particular parts of your spine, like in your lower back, but also try to tune into the work happening in your upper back. Okay, good. Last rep like this. Take yourself up as high as feels safe for you. Take your time. Make those hands start to feel light. And then smoothly start laying your spine down, using your hands as much as you need to keep this exercise feeling safe, but still good work for your spinal column muscles. Very nice. Okay, once you're all the way flat, go ahead, turn over onto your back, and we're going to come up to seated again. So we're going to do one more set of that roll back. So we're focusing on spinal flexion, which might feel pretty different after the spine work we just did. Okay, so go ahead, use your strap. If you felt like you were barely using your strap last time, you could try this round not using a strap. If on the other hand, you felt like your spine was kind of chunking down or moving with momentum, I want you to only work the bottom half of your spine. So you're not going to be laying all the way down to the ground, because the goal here is control. You're really trying to control each segment. Okay, so take a big breath in, brace your midsection, and then start curling your tailbone under so that your lean starts at the very bottom of your spine. And then you're flexing your lumbar spine behind your belly button. There you go, Monica. Good. Keep crunching and rounding so you're never letting your back collapse down to the ground. Good. Nice. Keep going as far as you can. Maybe that's to the ground, or maybe that's partway up your back. That's fine. And then recover back upright. And keep working on this for the rest of this minute, taking your time to reset between every single rep. Really looking good. Keep trying to smooth out those parts of your spine that don't want to bend. Can you spend even one extra second there? Really nice. Using your breath. Last 15 seconds. Good. And go ahead, finish up the rep you are on. Trying to engage as much front of your torso tissue as you can find, and then let that go. Excellent. Okay, so just always remember that those muscles that we're lighting up for you there, those are the same muscles that we use to come into that flexion shape in quadruped when we're doing cat-cow too. So just trying to connect those dots can be really helpful to keep your spine progressing. All right, so now we're gonna work a little bit on hips. So you can stay laying on your back, and we're gonna just warm up the hip joint with some capsule CARs for your hip. We're gonna do these with a straight leg today. So you can keep your left leg bent and the foot on the floor, but I want you to lift your right leg as high as you can to the ceiling or towards your chest, but your knee has to stay totally straight and extended. So go ahead and just maybe do a couple reps of pulling that leg in. Yeah, Hannah's showing just right of, just see how far you can pull that leg in with a straight knee, maybe give it a few chances. And the knee can be tricky. The knee can feel like it's straight when it's actually bending a little bit. So go ahead and take a look if you need to. Okay. And then whatever angle feels like maximum for you, brace your midsection here so your back is totally flat on the ground. You can have your hands on your pelvis if that helps as well. And then start twisting your leg that's in the air as much as you can in one direction, just twisting it, and then in the other direction, twisting it. So the angle of your leg stays the same, but you're just rotating it like an axle. This is your hip capsule CAR. Might feel a little different than normal because we're doing it here with a straight leg. And as this movement warms up for you, notice all the stuff that needs to work to keep your pelvis and your back completely still. That's actually the priority here. Then also notice exactly how far can you twist your thigh bone inward into internal rotation, and exactly how far can you twist it outward into external rotation. Keep working this 10 more seconds. Breathing around tight abs, and then bend that knee and set the leg down. Yeah, very nice work. Take a breath. Make sure that back feels flat on the floor, and then let's do the same on the other leg. Lifting that leg up and just testing on this side, how far can you bring that leg into flexion without the knee bending? So another way to know if your knee is straight or not is to feel if your kneecap is pulling up your thigh. If your kneecap doesn't feel like it's pulling up your thigh, I bet your knee is bent a little bit. Okay, once you find your angle, start that rotation at the hip so the whole leg rotates, twisting one way, twisting the other way, but with actually most of the work happening in the non-moving parts of your body. Very good. Keep pulling that kneecap up so it's an active leg that you're turning and twisting. 10 more seconds here, breathing around all that working tissue. Breathing, and then slowly relax, bend that knee, set it down. Excellent. Okay. So now we're going to dive right into some specific work for hip internal rotation. This is a little bit different than the 90-90 setup, but this is where you're going to need the block or the thick pillow, and you're going to come up to seated. So maybe just chill for a second, and Hannah's going to show this setup again so you know exactly what you're aiming for. Okay, and I think I might show it as well, just so you can get a couple of glimpses, because as we like to say, Hannah has a ton of hip internal rotation. I have a very small amount, so you can see a range here. I like to do this leaning back against something so I don't have to worry about my upper body, but you could just as soon be resting on your hands. And then you're going to use your, let's say I'm using a block, you're going to use that block underneath your knee. I'll show you from this direction so that you're sort of in one of these shapes. Okay, so the leg is out to the side and rotated. The knee is totally supported, and the other leg is just anywhere that feels good for you. Okay, yeah. But a real key here is that your spine is allowed to bend and flex as much as you need. So for me to get my hip rotated like this, you can see my spine is very rounded. That's totally fine. Okay. So if you're leaning back against your arms, you'll look a lot like this. Maybe you're leaning back against a couch or a chair. That's a nice setup. But you're definitely having a block or a pillow fully filling in the space between your knee and the ground such that you can just rest your knee on that block. You're not holding it in space. It's not hanging at all, but it's just resting. Okay. Let me just take a gander. Yes, looks great. Okay, now everyone resting in this position, I want you to consciously curl your tailbone under a little bit more, like we were doing on those rollbacks. This should help you feel like you buy a little bit more freedom in that hip. And then you can maybe like twist that hip bone a little bit more. It's going to be very slight, so I probably won't see it. So you're not forcing any motion. You're just trying to create a little more torque at your hip joint. It's a micro adjustment thing. So if it doesn't make any sense to you, it will in a moment. Okay, great. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so then from here, just taking a couple more breaths to let your body settle into this position. We're going to do some isometric strength training from here. So very, very lightly, barely any extra pressure, start pressing your working leg, your bent knee side, pressing that foot down into the floor. Okay, so it's that stretching hip. That right foot is pushing into the floor if your right hip is stretching. Okay, add to that just enough pressure in your knee into that block that your knee's not going to come up. So you're gluing it to the block. And then gradually start pressing that foot more and more into the floor, trying to rotate your thigh or like unwind your thigh from this internally rotated position. Good. So if the floor wasn't there, your foot would just be rotating right through it. This is your PALS contraction. So gradually ramp it up to 40% effort, 50% effort. And this is as much as might feel good for you. If you're feeling it in your knees a little bit, you can just park it here. If not, keep building to 60% and then 70%. We just hold it at 70% here. Good. 5 more seconds at 70%. Feeling how your whole body is working a bit to stay still. And then keep your body still, keep your body active, and switch from pushing your foot into the ground to trying to make the foot light without lifting it. Just make it light feeling. This is basically asking your hip to rotate in the opposite direction, which might cause a little cramping. So flirt with that cramp. Okay, I'm seeing some nods. Flirt with the cramp. Play with turning up the intensity of that contraction just as much as you can tolerate for 5, 4, 3, 2, and slowly let that contraction relax away. And then go ahead, come out of this shape, gently, taking your time. Okay, it's a very end range position for your hip, so it might feel a little like, whoa, zombie hip moment. That's okay. And go ahead, we're gonna get set up on the other side. Same dealio. Okay, so part of what I love about this setup is it's very like simplistic and kind of user-friendly to remember. All you need to do is block under your knee and then curl your tailbone under and find a position that's comfortable. So, you don't have to worry too much about being in exactly the right shape because really the goal is just to find a friendly way to twist the hip joint. Okay, I'm just looking around. Looks really good. Yeah, Lauren, you could feel free to turn your body towards the block a little bit more so it doesn't have to be out to the side, but you can actually have it kind of in front of you. Might feel a little better. Yeah. You could also play with the height of the block. Lots of options there. You could stack lots of pillows up, but the key again is to make sure your knee feels supported. Okay, now as you find that setup, curl your tailbone under a little bit more so that you have more space in that hip. And then just micro adjust your way so that it feels like, okay, I'm really twisting that hip as much as I can. Feels safe, but it really does feel like whoop, as wound up as possible. Take a few breaths to let your nervous system settle into this position. Great work. Breathing. Okay, now committing to staying in exactly this body shape, start engaging a very light PALS effort. So that working leg foot starts to pressure down into the ground. And that helps you feel like you're trying to unwind your hip. Maybe Hannah can just show a little bit of a direction on that hip so you can see, yeah, that unwind. Thank you. As you get a feel for that winding contraction, start building it up. Build up the intensity of that. Realizing that it's the deepest tissues in your hip that create that twist. So really working deep here, up to 40% effort, 50%. If it feels safe, keep building up to 60, and then 70% effort. This should feel like a significant amount of work. Only holding it for 10 more seconds, but you got to stay steady. Good. Now keep holding that brace to keep your body still and shift to thinking of twisting your hip the other way. So your ankle is now getting light, even as it stays on the floor. You're trying to ask your hip to internally rotate more. Find those tissues. Flirt with cramping those muscles that are rotating your thigh bone more into internal rotation. Breathing. 5, 4, 3, 2, and then slowly relax it. And only once you're back down to 0, then start coming out of this position. Bueno. All right. Go ahead, slide down onto your back again. So we're back into our supine position. We're going to check in on those rotations again for your hip. Okay. So this setup, I just wanted to give you a little taster for it today. But if you were doing it, you really wanted to increase the internal rotation of your hip significantly, you could do it for 2 or 3 or even 4 more sets, okay? So go ahead and reach one leg up to the ceiling, finding the angle that allows your knee to stay straight. And then keeping your back braced against the floor, start twisting that hip again. Really trying to integrate or involve those tissues we just found in your PALS rails into this rotation. Good. Feeling the whole leg rotate as one. Keeping that knee totally straight, even if you have to lower your leg a little bit. 10 more seconds. Good. Yeah, Monica, try lowering that leg just a skosh. Yeah, there you go. So then you can really pull the kneecap up. And then smoothly bend that knee and set the foot down. Take a breath. And then the other side. Good. Bracing your back on the ground, finding that kneecap, and then start your twisting. And really try to find a complete stop. So you're rotating as far as you can one way, and then as far as you can the other way, all the way to a stop. Twisting, twisting, twisting. Good. Final 5 seconds. Finding those muscles. And then bend that knee and set the foot down. Excellent. Okay. So make your way now to quadruped. We're going to engage some other hip tissue. And this should feel maybe a little bit different than normal because we just stretched your hip capsule. with that internal rotation work. So you're going to be in quadruped, and I think for this one, let's all work with the same leg. So I'm going to have Hannah step the left leg out to the side, and you guys can all join us here too. This one should be pretty straightforward to feel and move through. So take a look at that left leg and make sure it really is right out to the side. It's totally fine if your belt buckle has to turn to allow you to do that. You don't have to stay facing to the floor, but you don't want the foot really behind you too much. You want it to be right to the side. Okay. Then once you're there, create a little gentle pressure downward with that extended leg, with that left foot. So your left foot starts to get just a little heavier into the floor. And that should engage the muscular contraction in your inner thigh and maybe even into your midsection, your torso. So let that spill over. So your whole torso is getting turned on with effort. All right. And then keeping that leg pushed down into the floor, start to just tilt only your pelvis, like you're doing a cat-cow, but only your pelvis curls under and then curls back. So if the leg stays heavy while you do this tilt, you should notice that slightly different inner thigh tissue engages as you move your pelvis. So your whole upper body is staying strong, still, and only your pelvis is tilting back and forth. Breathing, but keeping that leg pressured down into the ground for 5 more seconds. Nice, Lauren, good. And then relax. Give those wrists a quick break. Bring your left leg in. Same thing on the other side, okay? So just keep in mind that we're going to do a few more progressions from quadruped. So if your wrists start to talk to you and distract you, please come onto your elbows instead, either elevating or on the ground. No need to push your wrists. Okay, so with the right leg straight out to the side now, start to pressurize that right foot right down into the ground. Maybe just about 15-20% effort, not crazy. And then once you're clearly doing that, start tilting just your pelvis, curling your tailbone under, but keeping your rib cage still. And then reaching your tailbone to the ceiling and keeping your rib cage still. There you go, Corey. Nice. Very nice. Good. Keeping that leg heavy. Smoothly controlling the motion of your pelvis. If you're feeling pretty connected to that motion, try to slow it down. Could you move it with even more control? Great, last 10 seconds. Keep your focus going. Very nice. And melt away that effort. Again, sitting back, giving your wrists a quick break. And now we're going to go back to the first side, okay? Now this side, we're going to be working on pushing the leg down, but we're also going to be working on the muscles that would lift the leg up. However, we're not going to be actually lifting the leg. So your leg is going to stay totally still. So from the outside, nothing should move, but from the inside, you're going to feel a ton of work on one side of the joint and then a ton of work on the other side of the joint, okay? So finding that same position we had, just kind of neutral with your spine, neither curled under or reaching up to the ceiling, just neutral. Left leg's out to the side. And start creating pressure down into the floor again. So you're turning on your pales contraction. Your left foot is getting heavier. The tissue all the way from your ankle to your inner thigh, to your groin, to your torso, all of that starts to turn on. And you start to build the intensity there, smoothly growing that intensity up to 60% effort. Just hold that. And then keep your body braced, keep your leg on the floor, but switch to trying to make that left leg light instead of heavy. And when you switch, you should notice that tissue turns on the outside of your hip. Okay, try to really focus on that tissue, ramp up that tissue, So the outside of your hip is really working. And then slowly relax that, but keep your body shape. Good. Rep 2 of 3. Start making that foot heavy again. So back to pails. This time, as you make that foot heavier and heavier, start to feel like you're pulling the floor towards your body with that left leg as well. Notice how that asks for more tissue to turn on. Use that to ramp your body up to 80% effort. Holding 80% effort, keeping your body braced. Shift now to making the foot feel light. Again, keeping it on the ground, but making that foot light with 80% effort. Really feeling and controlling that contraction on the outside of your hip. Melt it down. Relax for just a moment. Keep this shape if you can. One more rep on this side. Okay. Again, pails contract. Foot gets heavier into the ground. Starting at 1% and growing percent by percent up through 20%, 40%, using that heavy foot to pull the floor towards your other leg, 60%, 80%, and then keep growing to your greatest safe effort of pushing your foot into the floor. 3, 2, now switch to making your foot feel light on the floor. Greatest safe effort at making that foot light without actually lifting it up. Can you use all those tissues on the outside of your hip to stretch your inner thigh even more for 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. And only once you're relaxed, then come out of this position. Give those wrists a break. Shake them out just a bit. Yeah, so good. You know what I mean by your body doesn't move. From the outside, doesn't look like anything's happening. But on the inside, there's a party. Okay, let's go over to that other leg. So your right leg's kickstand out to the side. Okay, if your wrists feel a little bit touchy, you could always turn the fingers outward. That does buy a little extra space for your wrist joints. You could walk your hands out a little wider than your shoulders, also buys a little space for your wrist joints. Okay, and then once you're here, spine is neutral, not going to change shape. So brace your midsection and then gently start pressing that right foot into the floor. Just a little bit at first. And then let that little bit grow percent by percent. So you're gradually ramping up your pails contraction, starting to feel all the tissues that help you make your foot heavy. And let's ramp it up to 60% effort for a 10-second hold. Good. Now keeping that effort, keeping that body brace, switch to making your foot feel light on the floor, but keep it on the ground. Just feeling lighter and lighter. How much contraction can you find on the outside of your hip? Hold this, really feeling for that contraction. And then slowly melt away that contraction. Take a breath, and again, start pressing your foot down into the floor. Little bit at first. Let that grow smoothly. Ramping up, starting to feel like you're pulling the floor towards you with that foot. Not just heavy, but also pulling towards you. If the floor wasn't there, you'd be bringing your straight leg right in front of your body. Ramping up, maybe past 60% if it feels safe, all the way to 80%. So really significant, but probably not something you could hold for more than maybe 30 seconds. Just have 5, 4, 3, 2, and switch to making the leg light When you switch, the contraction should switch as well to the outside of your hip. Send as much effort to that outside of your hip as you can. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Melt it down. Good. Final rep on this side. Okay. Start making that foot slightly heavier into the ground. And then building a bit more intensity into the floor. And then feeling that you're pulling the floor toward you. Checking in, are you pressuring with your toe as well as your heel? Could you get more of that inner thigh to ramp up? Coming all the way to your greatest safe effort, holding this intense strength training effort for 5, 4, 3, 2, and switch to making your foot as light as possible without lifting it off the ground. Using that contraction on the outside of your hip to increase the stretch in your inner thigh. 5, 4, 3, 2, and slowly melt away the contraction in your body. When you're at 0, go ahead and relax and come onto your back. Final chance to check in on that hip rotation. So just take a moment here laying on your back before we start moving the hips any. Just let your spine feel heavy on the ground for a moment. That was a lot of effort. Good. Okay. So just taking a moment to breathe, check in with your body, check in with your spine, and then solidify that spine flat on the ground, making sure your back isn't going to arch, and reach one of your legs up to the ceiling, just like we've been working. Pull that kneecap up your thigh bone. And then one final set of hip capsule rotation, twisting your thigh bone as much as you can in each direction. And tuning into exactly how does it feel different from the previous sets that we've done now that we did that intense Pales rails for your inner thigh tissue. Really feeling for the difference. Can always put a hand on the thigh to provide more feedback, to remind your nervous system what you're asking for. You're asking for rotation. It's not the most obvious thing in the world. So really do whatever you can to help yourself. Love that. Good. And go ahead, bend that knee, set the foot down. Take a breather. And then we do the same thing on the other side. Start reaching that leg up. Back is braced. And start your twist. Good. Feeling how much the leg can move independently from the rest of your body. So you're really working to keep your spine and your pelvis still, even as you twist the leg as far as it can go. Nice, Chris Ann. Finding those complete stops. There you go, Alex. Using some feedback. Hand on thigh can be so helpful. Good. Final 5 seconds, twisting, wringing out anything else that you can feel for. And then go ahead and melt it away. Come on down. Okay.